Investec plc preference shares are issued by Investec plc.
Right, so now Investec that is, do have an ordinary plain vanilla local rand linked to South African prime pref share as well. But this one was interesting because they issued something with the code INPP, which actually distributes a base amount as a function of the Bank of England interest rate, plus 1%, multiplied by the base capital. So in effect, what you're dealing with here is a cash flow which is related to the British pound, which then gets converted into rands.
Market cap of aggregate value of units in issue, 1.51 billion rand, and they presently offer an effective yield of 2.69%. Are we right on that?
Yes, we're right on that, and that's because it's a sterling investment. For all intents and purposes, this is a relatively easy way to put some money into sterling, almost a cash deposit into sterling. Obviously, part of Investec bank backed. So that interest rate, yes, is reflective of the interest rate differential between South Africa and England. And the reason for that is the inflation rate differential. And so it's very correct. And if you look at the price graph, which we'll look at just now, the graph is completely different.
Well, there we go.
Have a look
on
there.
Our screen right now.
It's reflective of the devaluation of the rand for all intents and purposes over this period. Yeah. So it does prove its worth as a rand hedge.
So we're now talking about something that we could get excited about.
Well, potentially, because if you're of the view, like many South Africans are, that the rand is going one way only relative to the pound, it's crested 20 and now people are weeping about the cost of a beer in London. This is a rand-denominated investment which will capture that devaluation, potentially, although you do understand that it is a rand instrument at the end of the day. You can only ever sell it for rands, so that's what it is.
So if we were to call this one, would you go with the hot issue, or is there anything else to add before we make the decision?
It's really dependent on your view of the rand, and this is an easy way of so it does have a slightly different property, and for that reason it's a little bit more interesting than the others, and yeah, potentially I would say it has some place in a portfolio.
What about the direction of UK interest rates? I mean, is the view that interest rates there, which are just about nothing, are going to rise, I guess? John Carney,
isn't it inevitable at the end of the day that everybody will follow the Fed ultimately? And there's so much talk about the US Fed and when that interest rate rise is going to happen this year.
Yes, and the interest rates will rise. I'd firmly believe that in the UK and in the US, not necessarily in sync, but your comment is totally spot on. They will eventually have to, because they'll protect their currency. So yes, this will give you access to a rising interest rate in pounds. So for that reason, it does have some interesting qualities.
Paul?
For the record, I don't think inflation is ever going to become a particularly important thing that we will worry about like we used to in the 1970s and the 1980s. But anyway, that's another discussion for another day. For me, despite those positive qualities, this difference, the unusual nature of it, not hot for me.
Not hot. Lance?
For me, likewise, not hot. I think the rand might be slightly undervalued, if anything.